What's going on, everyone? My name is John. Welcome to the channel.
Oh! Yes! Yes!
Dude, I'm an adult. Hey. The last video I put out was on my motorized scooter. I took the whole thing apart, kind of reworked it a little bit, and I put a snow kit on it, basically. Put a track and a ski on the front. It worked, but it was severely underpowered, and by the end of the little evening of riding, the clutches were getting hot, gearbox, and it was not happy. So I decided that we would revisit that project, and we decided we'd put this in it. Now you have to excuse the mess because, well, this place is always a mess. This is a 49.5 50cc. I believe it's a Honda knockoff. Came in a Chinese kind of mini chopper, mini bike thing that I had. And it still runs pretty good. It is engine up top, and there's a 4-speed semi-automatic gearbox back here. Kickstart, also electric start. There's a starter down here, which is not many more cc's, but it is, all the gearing is way better, and I guess with a 4-speed like that, you can adjust it to however you want. So we will be putting that in my scooter. Okay, so you know when you text your buddies and you're like, yeah, you wanna come hang out in the garage? And then by the time they get there, half the work is done? That's kind of what's going on here. Me being the texter, you guys being the buddies. Cause, well, I forgot to text you, but you showed up, half the work is done. Basically, I just went into the garage to measure some stuff. And yeah, I was carrying my grinder, and then I slipped. And this happened, my scooter cut itself right in two, and this motor from my mini bike over here, that fell out, and then when I went to pick it up, then I hurt my back a little bit, so I turned to set it on the table, and bam, it sat right in there. So that's kind of what we're doing. I've had this thing forever. I've had this thing since I was like 15. So bought this before I bought a car. Me and my brother, we would take them, ride them into town, you know, stop at your local gas station, which is like 30k away, and get a drink. You'd ride in, take you 45 minutes or an hour down gravel roads, get a drink, and then you'd ride all the way back home. So it's had some miles on it, but it's, I don't know, it's always treated me pretty good. And I just barely got it going again. It was sitting in a barn for ever. So I revived the mini bike, made sure it ran, and then my scooter needed more power, as you've seen in my last scooter video, so this will go on my scooter. Basically, this chunk with the little sprocket on it used to sit kind of right in there, and I just lopped that all off because I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in a bit, but right at that post, she is busted. Like, that's cracked up real bad. And this little shock, I mean, it looks cool, but it doesn't really do anything. So we're just gonna take that right out. All the suspension will be deleted, and we'll just have to weld her up solid. I have to add a little chunk in here so that I have enough space for my feet to sit. So the bike itself will gain about a foot, roughly. It might be a little less than that, we will see. But anyway, I just got finished drilling some holes, making a motor mount plate. So I'm gonna weld that, clean this area up here, weld this plate in, and or at least bolt it to the engine so we can kind of set it where we're gonna set it. Other obstacle is the drive sprocket on this motor is on the opposite side. The old scooter It was on the right hand side. Kind of see it in there. So I'm gonna have to probably get rid of some of this and figure out how to put a sprocket on this side. I don't know, a little bit of engineering, but we can make it work, no problem at all. Made her this far. Yeah, I guess we could take the fender off. The fender still kind of fits on there, kind of looks cool. I might be able to tie that in somehow to the, there's a little engine mount on the top there. Progress update. This is where we are. We got, well, the front half was chopped off before, but motor is somewhat mounted. It's just tacked in a couple places in case I need to move it, change it, do whatever. But for now, this is where it will be situated. Okay, clears the track. The chain can run through here, and then I'll have to put the sprocket in here somewhere. Figure that out later. So now, with it sitting where it's sitting, which it looks a little crooked almost. You can definitely see it in the camera. Okay, so I'm gonna have to chop my tacks and just tilt it over a little bit, but we will do that after they get the front reattached so that it's one scooter again, and then I can adjust the motor, straighten it out, square it up completely. Yeah. Plans. All right, I put exactly 6 inches in the middle here, and I just butt welded the bar in there for now, and I'll make some gussets, make some fish plates, make some filler plates, kind of close it all in so that it's, you know, sturdy, because that's going to be almost most flex of the thing will be there. Wow. But I mean, it looks like a scooter right now. Looks like something, I guess, if you stand back far enough. Wow. Somewhere there's an engineer that's yelling at me. I'm going to town on this thing. It's stuck together kind of sort of a little bit, but you know, there's a plate in the bottom, whatever, but it's still pretty flexible. It's hard to see, but I think I'm just gonna skin the whole bottom of it with a big plate and probably tie it into here or up into this bar or something, and just it'll be thick, solid, all cleaned up, shined up, ready for that plate. I cut the plate out. This is I don't even know how thick that is. Thick enough. 6 inches wide. And it goes in here. Slippery. Something like that. I need to line it up a little bit better, but yeah. So there's something like that. Welds to the top of the bar there. And I should be able to get welded almost all the way around. Oh, get in there. Mint. That should add as much sturgidity as it needs. Alright, so I got carried away here a little bit. Welded the plate on, and obviously painted everything red. So the only welding I do have to do is on this engine plate. You can see here it's lacking some paint, kind of dark. We will finish welding that. That's just tacked on for now. We will finish welding that when we get the sprocket all set up on the tire, like the new sprocket on the tire, and we can kind of set the engine up straight, make sure it's mint, and then we can weld that on solid. So that's just tacked for now. All right, so I'm getting kind of tired of welding. I'm going to town on this thing, but like I said, got tired of welding, so came over to my mini bike, and she's looking pretty sad now. There's not much left of her, but I ripped all the wiring out of it pretty much, except for, you know, stuff like that, the horn and whatnot, but all the starter and everything is off. There's nothing left. It's pretty empty. Make a good candidate for a V-twin if we could find something like that. Anyway, I took all the wiring, tripped over my throttle cable. So I took all that wiring, brought it over to my bench. I thinned it out a little bit, cut off a couple not much, a couple connectors we didn't need. And I started laying it out. This is the bottom side of the fender for the scooter. So I started laying it out. Just P-clips and self-tappers, which I will replace with rivets. Yeah, so it should all fit. This right here is where it bolts on to this little bad boy right here, a little tab. So that might be a little tricky to get in, but we can make it work. And yeah, I'm gonna make a shield that covers hopefully most of this up to keep the snow and the water off of it. Probably use from our old Razor scooter. I thought this was plastic, but this is the most flimsy steel. Probably cut it with scissors, basically tin foil. But yeah, I should be able to form that up a little bit and at least cover it so that it doesn't get all packed full of snow. Water splashed on it, decided to save them a little bit. I mean, they were pretty exposed in the bike, but that doesn't mean they need to be exposed directly to flying debris. Of course, the bike crashed more than it drove, so it was pretty exposed. Anyway, that's what I'm doing, and I'll catch up with you in a minute. This is what our board ended up looking like. Not too bad. I mean, at least everything's kind of tucked in. It'll be good enough for who it's for. This is our super intricate piece of shielding. kind of goes over something like that. Yeah, bolt in the back, and then I'll rivet it up in the front there, and it'll be good enough. Well, boys, I may have gotten a little carried away. I had all the electrics strapped onto the fender. I went to put the fender on, plug some stuff into the motor, and then I'm like, well, I should see if it runs. So I threw the fuel tank on, and then I spent an hour or whatever trying to get it going because it kept running out of fuel. So I ended up, the fuel tank has to be on the handlebars because it has to gravity feed the fuel to the carburetor, as opposed to the old engine that was in there that had a little tiny clicker pump type thing in the carburetor, and it would suck it in. So anyway, I spent some time getting that going, and I'm like, well, I might as well try and take it for a rip. So I took it, and I forgot that I just had the engine plate there kind of half tacked down. Not even half, I don't know. Anyway, that thing kind of ripped up and lifted up, and now that motor's all shifting sideways, and yeah, she had some power, because, well, it was ripping good, and ended up blowing the track off, messed up my track guard there, and yeah, got all sorts of skid words. But I mean, she made noise and she ripped through the gears. Yeah, this is the gear shifter right here. You ever want that feeling of, you know, you're gonna die? Just put your gear shifter way too low, so you have to lean over, try and grab it, and then also try and steer and try and keep the thing. It's just a big, I just remembered you guys haven't heard it run yet. Ooh, well, before I take it apart, let me at least fire it up for you so you can, you know, hear it. I did have it running before, just so you know, it wasn't just like a cold start wide open. I don't know, these little bikes, well, they always need, you always gotta choke them to get them started, and then half the time they don't want to idle unless they're like hot. But, so yeah, just so you know, I didn't just freaking flat, whatever that is, I don't know what that is. I get a little excited sometimes. So this is what I've got done that I need to catch you guys up on. Cut the chain tensioner off the bike, welded on there actually. fits really well. A little bit of overspray there. We'll just put that back under the cover. Like that. I had to trim this cover a little bit just so that it would clear the chain tensioner and everything else. I don't know what the zip tie is doing there. I could come off. We put the sprocket off the bike, and I just welded it straight onto the sprocket that was on the scooter tire. I mean, could have made an adapter or some kind of jazz, but it's got a few baby tacks on this side. That was just to keep it centered so it didn't move around, and then it's got some really decent ones back behind and everywhere where I could get. So so far so good with that. I mean, I haven't ripped it that much, but it seemed to hold up. I mean, yeah. I'm a little sketched out because there's just 3 little Allen bolts holding the sprocket onto the hub. So, I mean, if that rips apart, then I think we're hooped. So the next thing up here is the shifter. We just used the existing rod that went to the foot pedal and give her a little tack there. Bent the shift arm, straightened it out a little bit because it kicked out pretty good. And then so we just straighten that out so it's more of an up and down motion. So it's all the gears are down and then up is neutral. So that'll be okay. Yeah, like I said, maybe put a sort of shift knob on there or something if we keep it there. I did notice on my short little rip that when you're up ripping it, to try and lean down and smack her down a gear, that just upsets your whole balance, then it just tips this way and all of a sudden you're plowing, and I'm like, so I don't know if that'll stay there, especially if we put street tires on. Me, a guy would hate to be doing like 60K, go down to grab your last gear, and then, you know, wipe out through somebody's garden and onto their front deck. So we might end up having to put a seat on there so that a guy can actually like get her in the proper position, and you don't have to figure so much, but we'll cross that when we get there. I cut this chunk out of the exhaust. It kind of went something, maybe it was like that. Yeah, it was like that. And I crossed over to the other side there. And so I chopped this section out and I just welded it, you know, straight on to this little bend here, and it actually worked out really good. I cut the tab off the back, I welded on here. So there'll be a bolt that goes where the zip tie is, and it clears the kickstand. Let's see if I can do this without knocking the bike over here. Come on. But yeah, it clears the kickstand just perfectly. So that worked out really well. What else? I shortened the sleeve on the throttle cable to get more throttle cable, so that you know, now she's got full action. Also, I wired the off button to work with the starter. So now the off button is the starter. I mean, I thought I would have to use the start button off the bike, but the polarities were the same and stuff, so it worked out really well. I mean, it's just a momentary switch anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, motor's welded in, it's nice and straight with the rest of the bike there, and she's fully welded, so that's where it's going to be. I do have to make some sort of guide system or a tunnel for the track, because it just gets way too hairy and it's all over the place, and the guide system that we were using before with the little plexiglass, not going to work. Too much speed and power for that. It just gets all bound up and gets crazy. So that'll be next on our agenda of stuff to figure out. But yeah, so far so good. She's really coming along. I'm excited to ride it. Honestly, I'm excited to take this track kit off and rip it in the summer. So that'll be scary.